welcome to Taxes and Touchlines. And today we'll dive into the tactical talk between Arsenal and Spurs coming up this weekend. We are here with an Arsenal fan who we want to get to find out what is really going on with their team because in their last two games, things haven't been what they were expecting. They were looking at getting trophies in the FA Cup, the EFL. The FA Cup, they are out with the EFL. They are on the verge of going out because they need to visit St. James Park to get at least 3 goals there to qualify ahead of Newcastle. So you are welcome onto the show and we want to find out because you've been to the stadiums to watch some of the games for us now. You get to speak with some of the fans after the game and get to know what they feel about the head coach, Arteta. But my number one question would be, is Mikel Arteta the right person to lead Arsenal? And at the end of the season, if Arteta doesn't win anything at Arsenal, should Arsenal let him go and bring in another manager who would help complete this amazing project he started?
Okay, let me start by saying, first of all, thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be back. I'd say I'm going to be with the manager. I'm going to support him until he's no longer needed at the club, until the board make a decision. I still believe that he can be the guy to take us to the titles that we want to win as a team. But I think the kind of frustration I have, well, a lot of fans now is like maybe his stubbornness at this point in time. We've seen us play more expansive football than we have been playing in recent months, well, especially this season as well. This season, it feels like we've regressed in terms of the football we've been playing. So what it will take to get us back to that point, I don't know. I think maybe just a few tactical changes. But we have to wait and see. It depends what this manager does in the next few games. But yeah, I'm still going to support him until he's no longer at the club.
Okay, so let's look at some of the players who has been a key factor in Arteta's team. We've seen Saka, we've seen Declan Rice, we've seen Odegaard. David Raya has been very instrumental in this team. Saliba and Gabriel. These are players Arteta brought in. These are players Arteta brought them in to try and make this project work. And we've seen how incredible they've been for Arsenal all this while. But some people would bring one player, especially when they are talking about players Arteta has brought in. I mentioned over 6 players, which they've all had an impact on this team. The next player would come up would be Kai Havertz. People are talking about Kai Havertz, and I heard an Arsenal fan make a comment about if a player comes into a club and he's being labeled as a force something, maybe a force 9, a force 10, a force this, meaning the player doesn't really know his position. And it will become a bigger problem for a coach to find a particular position for him. Kai Havertz in Arsenal's last 2 games against Newcastle, against Man United, has been very, like he's struggling. He's not getting grip of the game. You could see close chances he needs to convert and he's missing them. Do you think Arteta is being overprotective, especially when it comes to Kai Havertz, because game in, game out he's playing, but Arsenal fans are not seeing the performance, they're not seeing the number of goals or the number or the contribution he's bringing to this team. What is your take about Kai Havertz in the Arsenal team? Do you think it's time he needs to now come from the bench and maybe some of the struggles will go off a bit because now he'll be coming from the bench and he wouldn't get a lot of bashing like starting the game, playing the full 90 minutes and not giving out good numbers?
I think Havertz is a very curious case because when we first signed him, I think we had first signed him, he was playing in that left centre midfield role, but he wasn't doing too well there. And I think we had an injury to Jesus, and that's why we ended up with Havertz going up top. I think someone like Havertz, I think you have to be careful. You said he's McCall's very overprotective with him. I'd say that's very understandable. Havertz seems like he's very much like a confidence player. So he's someone that you need to put like your arm around, support, give them like confidence because it's a tale of two stories. Football. We saw the same with like Xerxes a few weeks ago. United fans booed him off when he came off against. I think it was Liverpool that he got booed off. And then we saw on Sunday he scored the winning penalty for them. So he's in their good books again. So it's similar with Havertz. You just have to like give the guy. You need the guy to be confident. Like towards the second half of the season, he was like putting in goals against Brentford, the performance against Brighton last season as well. He's just a player that you need to um, to give that confidence. But the thing is with that is that sometimes you just need someone who's a bit more has of that killer instinct, which I don't think Havertz has. And I think that's going to be maybe, hopefully, it is not, but it seems to be at the moment his downfall. And then I think something I noticed about, I know we're going to talk about the Spurs game later, but just going into it, after the penalty shootout on Sunday, I know he probably knew himself that he didn't play it as well. After he missed the penalty, shootout was over, he just walked down straight to the tunnel. You could see he was quite distraught. It was like, so going into Sunday, I mean, Wednesday or so, with a low confidence habit, it could be a problem. But I think he can pull through for us if we just, as a fan base, like come around and support him.
Okay, so looking at Havertz, we know Arteta brought him in as like a versatile player who can play the nine, can play a 10, can play anywhere around the top positions. And people were complaining about the striking issue because in the past 5 seasons, Arteta being at Arsenal, he had Lacazette, he had Aubameyang. These players were good strikers. At least they were giving numbers. But Arteta felt that their professionalism is a bit off, especially coming into a group team like that. So he had to take them off, bringing in Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus. Gabriel Jesus at Arsenal had his best season, like his best goal tally season. Even at Man City, couldn't match up some of the numbers he has done at Arsenal. Do you think the striking issue has become a problem where Arsenal needs to bring in a striker? Because there have been times Arteta has been asked about this and he's like, no, the team is okay. He doesn't need another striker or a proper nine in the team. He thinks his team is solid. But now it's like Arsenal creates a lot of chances, but the conversion of those chances are not coming, even though Gabriel Jesus have had one or two good games. Do you think it's time Arsenal need to now plan and bring in a striker, maybe in the summer or maybe in this transfer windows?
I think it is time for me personally. Even when we signed Jesus, we signed Havertz, we played him up front. It's always been my preference to have a striker who's a actual striker up front, someone who like worries back lines. There have been games where I've watched Arsenal win, even though we won comfortably. I just feel like maybe the striking position we've not really given the centre backs a roughing up, so to speak. I feel like we need someone who can run behind the line, someone can stretch the defenses, which we don't have. I think the reason why Arteta stuck to a kind of archetype of like kind of false nine with Jesus and Havertz is because they can get more involved with the build up, which is a bit frustrating sometimes where you see your team is building an attack and your strikers near the halfway line, which is a bit, because who's in the box, who's the one going to be on the end of the chance that's about to be created. But yeah, I think it is time that we maybe adapt and move away from that kind of false nine pivot that we do have at the moment and go for it like a proper striker.
Okay, so as an Arsenal fan, Arsenal has been to a period where everything feels like it's getting closer every season. I want to ask you one question. At the moment, with the FA Cup, Arsenal are out. With the EFL, they need to go to St. James to get at least 3 goals to qualify for the final. But let's put up the two trophies which are available to them, which is the Champions League and the Premier League. So if I'm to ask you, between the Champions League and the Premier League, if you had a magic wand to at least speak or wish for something between the Premier League and the Champions League, which of these trophies would you go for and why?
I'd say if I had a magic wand, it'd be the Champions League. That's the biggest club competition in world football, and that's the one trophy Arsenal have never won. A lot of other fans don't make fun of Arsenal as we've never won a Champions League. So to have something like that in our cabinet would be good, but the reality of that is, it's a dream at the moment. So, but yeah, the Champions League would be the one now, the two that I would pick.
Okay, so the Champions League, Arsenal hasn't had the chance to win the Champions League. And I think every Arsenal fan would like to at least bring the Champions League, even though they've had chances of winning the league. The league is something I think in the seasons to come they'll be able to try and win it. Let's look at options this January. What additions do you think Arteta needs to bring in this January to at least try and make the team compete for the Premier League and also the Champions League? You are looking at Arsenal winning.
I think now that Jesus is actually injured as well, I don't know how serious the injury is, but it looks like he might be out for a while. I think we do need to reinforce in that striker position. Um, in terms of who we can get, I don't know. There's always I think the one that a lot of people want is Alexander Isaac from Newcastle, but I think that's too expensive. I don't think we would have to pay like a club record fee to get him, especially in January as well. And then we're playing Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, so I mean I don't think they'll want to let him go anytime soon. There's talk of Sesko from Red Bull. There's one player in Brazil that I've seen reports on. He's done very well this season. I think he helped them win the Brazilian Serie A. His name is Igor Jesus. I haven't seen too much of him, but his name's been whispered around. But yeah, those are like the three main strikers we could be linked to. Or I think Igor Jesus is like the most reasonable one in terms of like price. I think he's only available for around 25 million or so, but it depends what the club's willing to do in terms of maybe we need to sell someone before we can actually bring someone in. But the squad as it is very thin, so I don't see how that's possible.
Okay, so with Arsenal's injury list, we've seen players like Saka going off. We see players like Ben White, who is not even getting into the team. Tomiyasu, a whole lot of players now getting injured. Do you think this injury situation can worry Arsenal going forward to fight for the Premier League and also the Champions League? And with this injury list, we've seen players coming in and making good decisions and also scoring goals for Arsenal. Do you think there's other positions Arteta needs to look at adding, even though we've seen the striking role as the number one priority? But do you think there are other positions they need to make some additions during this January or in the summer?
I think in terms of defensive signings, I think we're okay as long as no one goes out the door. I think although we've brought Moreno in, we've got players coming back by like Lokonga and Vieira, but I'm not sure if they're in Arteta's plans going forward. I'd still like another central midfielder, someone who's more of a ball carrier in midfield. So I really like Morgan Rogers at Aston Villa. Maybe in the summer we could do something there, hopefully. But that's another pipe dream. And then we need another winger as well. I feel like Sterling will go back to Chelsea. There's been frustration around Martinelli and his kind of stagnation, for lack of a better term. And then we've just been overplaying Saka, I think, and that's what's resulted in this injury that he has now. He's just been like he doesn't have much time to rest. So yeah, either the two positions I prioritize are let me that left centre midfield and then another winger who can play both sides possibly.
Okay, let's look at, you mentioned Sterling. Do you think Arteta bringing in Sterling in the summer, where Chelsea were trying to get him off their books, do you think, looking at it now into the season, do you think it was a right decision by Arteta in bringing in Sterling than maybe getting in another player who could help? Because now we've seen rumors about he would surely go back to Chelsea. We've seen rumors about maybe Arsenal also going for a player like Marcus Rashford or Alejandro Garnacho. Do you think this will be the same mistakes like Sterling, or you see these two profiles as different compared to Sterling, even though Sterling is age-wise ahead of them?
I think with those signings, it will be difficult. They're two very different players in terms of where they are in their careers, Rashford and Garnacho and Sterling. I think one player I think would be the most net positive would be Garnacho. But I think the way he plays, he's very good. He shows signs of promise, but he's still quite raw. Rashford, I don't know. I think there's more at play rather than just on the pitch. I think his mind's elsewhere sometimes. I think it'll be a gamble to bring him in. I think it'll be like similar to Sterling in a way. But yeah, I think I don't think we should go for those players as such. I think we should go elsewhere. The players who are performing at maybe lower teams, but at a better level than those three have in the last few months. So I think
Okay.
going for one of those three would be a bit of a mistake.
Okay. So as you said, you need a striker at the moment to at least get in the goals, because you've seen the Premier League, you need to have a good defense and have a good attack. And with Saliba, Gabriel has shown that yes, they are one of the best center pairing in the Premier League in years, like 2-3 years now. They've shown it, and I think if Arsenal are to get in a good forward, things will get well. Let's look at the game coming up between Tottenham Hotspurs. Tottenham Hotspurs with Arsenal. If we are looking at the insights into this game, their last 5 meetings, Arsenal has defeated Tottenham Hotspur. In the last meeting at the Emirates Stadium, that was a 2-2 draw. But if you are to look at these both teams, Arsenal in their last five has scored 6 goals. Tottenham in their last five has also scored 7 goals. So meaning both teams are scoring goals. Angie has made it clear that in his second season, he gets to win a trophy. So he's looking at least adding the EFL or maybe getting a good position in the league. And also if he can win the Europa competition going on. Do you think this game, with record-wise, as I said, in their last 5 meetings, Arsenal has taken over, beating Spurs. But now Arsenal are, let's say, on a rough patch now from Newcastle to Man United. Do you think it changes the dynamics going into this game? Because now Arsenal have 2 games which they didn't get to win. Going into a game against Spurs, who also picked a slight victory in their FA Cup game. Do you think with the form Arsenal are in now, with the injuries available, the dynamics of this game will change and maybe Spurs can have a chance in this particular game?
Usually for the North London derby, when it's a home match, I'm a bit more confident. But based like you said on the recent form, I think both teams will be quite nervous going into this game. We are in a bad run of form. We've not won this year. Spurs as well. They've won a few games, I think, but they're a bit shaky and they've got injuries, especially in their back line. They're playing Dragoson and Archie Gray, who are quite inexperienced at this level. So there is some kind of, both teams have their own players missing in terms of injuries. So I think it'll be a nervy affair. If anything, I think maybe, I say nervy affair. I could also see a lot of goals in this game because of the way Ange Postecoglou likes to play this game. He likes to be very expansive and open and attacking. Arsenal, sometimes we can be, but defensively was solid. But in terms of attacking and going forward, we will create chances, but it's a matter of putting them away. So I think it could be a very cagey affair, I'd say.
Okay, so let's look at Tottenham with Angie in his seasons. I think last season, that was his first season, and he did so well. The start of the league, at least getting into the first 2 positions. They had a game against Chelsea with a whole lot of red cards and injuries coming in. Let's look at his style of play in the Premier League. Do you think he's the coach with this style of play, he'll be able to fit into the Premier League and dominate in some seasons to come? And do you think if Tottenham needs to back him with a lot of players? Because I've seen that in his last 2 transfer windows before this one we are in, he's more of the manager of signing, in quote, unknown players. We saw Odogi coming in. Most people didn't know about Odogi when he came in. There are a lot of players that came into this Tottenham setup that were not that known, especially when it comes to football. But it's like most players came in and they fit well. Do you think they need to back him with a lot of money to at least get him quality players to help him challenge for competitions, let's say the FA Cup, the EFL, the Premier League, the Europeans, even get into the Champions League? Do you think they need to back a coach like that? Or you think with the style of play, he wouldn't fit into the Premier League? So Tottenham needs to at least look in bringing in a new coach if he doesn't succeed this year or next season.
Okay, I'll touch on like the 2 things separately. So in terms of his style of play, it's very like entertaining to watch. It's very like gung-ho, it's very attacking. However, watching Spurs play, they don't control games because they could be winning 2-0, but they could lose control and then the game could end 2-2 or 3-2 to the other team, as we've seen a few times this season where they'll just lose control midfield. I think maybe that's part of his philosophy. I think maybe they need a midfielder who can like control that kind of tempo of a game, kind of like a Tony Cruz style of player who just kind of calms the game down. I thought Bentancur could be that player for them, but I don't think he necessarily is. But yeah, I don't know if Ange will ever like adapt to that. I think that's their main downfall at this moment in time, because especially with defensive issues now, and they're still continuing to play the way they are, they should be a bit more kind of defensive minded, but they're not. They're still doing what they usually do, and it's been to their detriment at times. So yeah, I think maybe if he doesn't adapt to that style of like being a bit more kind of conservative in certain times and just manage the game, maybe I think he could go out the door. At the same time, I think he should be backed with his own players. But the way Tottenham kind of operate now, I think he needs to get results with what he has before the board to back him. So whether that is a trophy or Champions League position, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, he needs to deliver something based on like whatever kind of metrics or kind of goals the board has set for him to get that backing.
Okay, so let's go deeper into the game now. These are two teams coming into this game. We know Saka as a player is ranked number one when it comes to chances created this season. He's missing out of the Arsenal team. Song on the Tottenham side is one of their best players when it comes to creating chances. So in a game like this, Arsenal really needs Saka, but we know Saka wouldn't be able to play this game. Maybe we'll see Martinelli, Trossard occupying that position. Do you think this game is a game Arteta needs to win comfortably to try and make a statement about his chances of winning the Premier League this season?
I wouldn't say he has to win it comfortably because it's a derby game and anything can happen in these kind of games, but he has to win. I think at this point in time, he has to win. The way we've started the year, the draw at Bournemouth, the losses to Man United and Newcastle now, he has to win this. Otherwise, I think I think a lot of the fans are already at wits end with him now. I think if he doesn't win on Wednesday, I think that'll be pretty much it in terms of like where the fan base were heading towards with him. But yeah, Arsenal have to win on Wednesday. It doesn't have to be comfortable. It doesn't have to look pretty, but Arsenal have to win on Wednesday.
Okay, so we're talking about winning on Wednesday. What do you think the scoreline would be? Because we are looking at, as you said, there will be a lot of goals because Tottenham are playing exciting football, trying to score goals, and their defense are not that clicking. So, what do you think the scoreline of this particular game would be?
I feel like 3-2. 3-2 to the Arsenal would be the score. I think, yeah.
Okay, okay. So, I want us to look at the Premier League so far.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a team like Nottingham Forest has surprised a lot of clubs, a lot of fans, a lot of even pundits about this game? Do you think their position now in the top four, they will be able to maintain it till the end of the season? And I would like you to also give me your top four ranking. Who do you think will win the league? The second, the third, and also the fourth position.
Nottingham Forest is an interesting one because it's not. I don't think it'll be another like Leicester season there because they're not in at the top of the table, but they're doing very well. And I think in terms of top four, I think the benefit for them is like they're playing with absolutely zero pressure, whether they make top four or not. Like they don't have a burden on their shoulders as such. I think they might tail off towards the end. I think just because other teams will come like they have more incentive to get to top four, and whereas Nottingham Forest don't. So I think they won't make top four, but I think they'll still get a European place. I think they'll get a Europa League place, in my opinion. Now, in terms, I remember like the last time we talked, you asked me what my thoughts on like the percentage of Arsenal winning the league. I think I said around like 80%. It's like 10% now. So um, I say first, I think it's Liverpool's to lose at this point in time. Second, I say is Arsenal. Third, Chelsea. And then fourth, I'm gonna go Newcastle. I think they're coming into the ascendancy. They've got a strong team. They've got their players coming back. I think Newcastle will grab fourth.
Okay. So
Actually, sorry. I completely forgot. No, Newcastle fourth. Man City fourth. Sorry, I completely forgot. Man City. Man City will finish fourth. No.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So we know the season. We've done half and getting into the second round of the season. Some two games into the second round of the season. Let's look at the first round of the season. I want you to give me your players, like maybe an 11 of players who performed well in the first round of the season. So the goalkeeper, your defense, your midfield, and your attack. You can form a team of players who put in a good work in the first round of the season.
Okay. Hopefully, I don't miss any good players. So in goal, I say it's between. I'm going to be biased and say Raya. I'm going to be biased. Raya, I think, has been very good for Arsenal. He saved us in a lot of games, and he's the one I see the most. Vertonghen at Brighton as well. I think he's been very good as well. But I'll go with Raya just out of bias. Right back, I'm going to go Ola Aina. I think he's been very good for Nottingham Forest. He's been, I think, one of their better players. And then left back, I'm going to go Anthony Robinson at Fulham. Centre back, Gabriel, just out of bias as well. Gabriel, and then my other centre back, I'd say is a tricky one. So like, I'll be biased again. I'll go Saliba as well. Just no, actually, no, sorry. Van Dijk and Gabriel. Those are my centre backs. I say those are my two centre backs, and then I'll go over midfield three. So in my midfield three, I'm going Iwobi. I'm going Morgan Rogers, and the other midfield spot, I'm gonna go with Gravenberch from Liverpool. I think those have been the three standout midfielders in my opinion this season. Right wing, Mo Salah has to be. Left wing, I have to think about this one. Left wing, I think I'm gonna put in Buemo. He's kind of plays on that wing kind of striker position. I put in Buemo, and then up front, I'm gonna go Chris Wood. I think everyone wouldn't expect him to be doing what he's doing at this point in time, but yeah, I'm gonna go Chris Wood as my striker.
Okay, I think this team is a very solid team. I know there will be other fans who would also have a lot of questions about some players not being in it. But as we said, it's your team for the first round of the season. And we are happy that you honored our invitation to join us today to have a discussion about Arsenal, to have a discussion about the whole setup with the struggles and how Arsenal can bounce back. We are looking at this game against Spurs, and we are looking at Arteta at least getting a win to try and boost the confidence of the players and also letting the Arsenal faithfuls know that the club is in good hands and you'll be able to handle the team well. So thank you for coming on Tactics and Touchline podcast today. And we are looking at bringing you on board later in the season where Arsenal have a big game or at the end of the season to discuss, have a full season review of how we saw our teams perform so during the season. So thank you for honoring our invitation and coming on board.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to come.